One. All right, shalom, everybody. We are going over Matthew chapter 6 today with the women. If other women may be jumping in, so you may see other heads pop in. And then we're also going to go over the Hebrew words chesed, which is in Strong's Word is H2617. So I'll reserve the last few minutes for that, but we're just going to jump straight into Matthew chapter 6. All right, so let's go ahead and pull. Actually, let me just get it from the side. And let me know if you can't hear me or anything, Ezzy.
Okay.
All right, so it says, "Take heed that you do not do your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father, which is in heaven. Therefore, when you do your alms, do not sound a shofar before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Amen, I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do alms, let your left hand know, do not let your left hand know what your right hand does, that your alms may be in secret, and your Father which sees in secret himself shall reward you openly." I'm going to pause on that first section there. I was looking like the alms. I didn't know what alms was, to be very, very honest. So I looked at that word, and it's like acts of mercy or pity or charity and things like that. So I was thinking, okay, feeding the homeless, giving to others, even preaching the word, things like that. And there's an intent. I was looking at the intent behind it. Like, we really have to check our hearts. It can't be to do it for the glory of men. Like,
Right.
And I hear people do it. Like, oh, I fed the homeless. I did this. I did this. And that sometimes becomes questionable because the act itself is good, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's very scary to say they have their reward. Like, what they did is what they did. They sound the shofar. They let everybody know right then and there. They got the glory and praises of men right there. And that's where their reward ended. Like, it didn't go all the way towards the Father where he's going to reward them openly. You know what I'm trying to say? So, and I was thinking, like, acts of mercy, which is crazy. Thinking acts of mercy, yeah, everything's good and everything's fine and it's lovely, but can be bad and can be selfish when we know the now we don't know the intention of people's hearts. Sometimes you can discern that and you can see, like, all right, this person's on another level of pride. They're not boastful. They're just showy. They're just trying to show face. But there's a lot of times we don't, and I think that's the part where he's saying ourselves. We need to check ourselves really as to why we're doing things and if it's for the Father. Did you get anything from just the first few verses?
Yeah, it made me think of the servant, Abraham's servant, when he was going to pick a wife for Isaac. Because even though, and I can't remember which, you have to help me with my sources because I can't remember what chapter that was in. I know it was in Genesis. Was it Genesis 19? I'm not sure. But when the servant went to go pick a wife for Isaac, he prayed. And he asked, Yahuwah to show certain type of sign or give him some type of confirmation of who was going to be the right one. And then when he went to the family, the only thing that he shared with the family was what Abraham had said. He didn't share the prayer. And because, sometimes we, just as humans, we might pray for something. And there's one thing, sharing the testimony or sharing what the end result was, or maybe what you were going through beforehand, so that Yahuwah can be seen without you having to show him. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you were going through trials and tribulations, you talk about the trials and tribulations, and then you talk about the blessing that you were given. But sometimes some people talk about, what they asked for and the conversation with Yahuwah, and that's personal, that's intimate. And I think about that servant. He didn't talk about, I prayed to Yahuwah and asked him to show this and this and this, and she did it. And, the only conversation or the only testimony that he gave was what Abraham had shared with him, and he brought that directly to the family. So I think this is, basically an example of how you can receive your blessing or reward. If you go out and you tell, people, you share that intimate conversation or that intimate prayer with people, well, you got what you're going to get, which is a conversation with Yahuwah, and you've taken away that blessing of the person seeing the evidence of the Father. So yeah, it just made me think of think of that. And I think that's, I mean, that's how Yahuwah works. That's how he softens the hearts of men. And that's how he shows himself. You have to allow the Ruach to work and for people to see Yahuwah for what he is without us taking that away in our own pride or ego.
Nice. You want to read it? It's Genesis 24. We might as well go into it and see. I remember in part of it, this aspect of he prays in his heart, and I think he does it silently. And it was just because I had a conversation with my husband. This was a while back about whether or not we should pray out loud, pray in our hearts, can we pray in our hearts? And I believe there's
a time,
a dynamic when we're praying out loud, and there's also those very intimate inner prayers. So let's go ahead and read some of it's in chapter 24. Trying to see where to start. I guess we could kind of start where is it the whole chapter? No, I don't want to read the whole chapter.
No, so it starts in verse 12, and he kind of recaps on what Abraham said, so to speak. So I think it starts in verse 12.
Okay.
And it says, and he said, Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, please meet me before this day and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here by the fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your jar to let me drink, and she says, drink, and let me water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. And let me show by this that you have shown kindness to my master. And
hold on, before you continue with this real quickly, I think it's so interesting. He's very specific in his prayer. I mean, like down to the T, like let her do this, and then this, And I was thinking sometimes, I was talking to my father the other day, and I'm like, Abba, and I have my thoughts in my mind that I'm saying, but then I'm praying something different, right? You ever have those moments where it's kind of like, when you're talking to someone, you're saying something, but you really think it's something else. And then I had to stop and say, you already know my thoughts. All right, let me just be very real with you, and have those, because sometimes I do that. Sometimes even with I try to be like, oh no, I'm going to cover over here for a second. And I know we're going a little off topic, but just this idea of prayer, and actually it's going to come up later anyway in Matthew chapter 6 about how to pray and how not to pray. So I'll actually be on topic. So go ahead. I want to share that. But he's very, very specific, and it's not in a testing manner. He wants to know that what's about to transpire is of the will of Yahuwah.
Right.
She granted him mercy in this. So, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
The next thing I was going to remove, of course she did it. She did everything that he asked for, basically. And so then I'm going to jump to when he was with the family. Let me see.
I think it's around 31 and 32.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so 31 says, and he said, come in, O Baruch of Yahuwah, why do you stand outside? I myself have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man came into the house while he unloaded the camels and provided straw and fodder for the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him, and put food before him to eat. But he said, let me not eat until I have spoken my word. And he said, speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant, and Yahuwah has baraked my master exceedingly, and he has become great, and he has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold and male and female servants and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master after she was old, and he was given to him all that is hers, all that he has. And my master made me swear, saying, do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell, but go to my father's house and to my relatives and take a wife for my son. And he goes on with the message that Abraham gave him earlier. So I just thought it was interesting. He didn't go into the prayer and all the signs that Yahuwah showed him along the way. He just delivered the message that Abraham told him to deliver.
Actually, I think he did go into the signs, though.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he does, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah, he
40.
doesn't go into the prayer. He goes like in 42. I came down, O Yahuwah, Elohim, my master. If now you prosper, with which I go, and then oh no, he does go into prayer because he gives. No. Then he goes into what happened. She said to
What
me,
she did, yeah.
yeah, what she did, what she did. Yeah. There you go. Yep. So he kind of jumped through that and kept that prayer. Yeah. So good stuff. And out of this, and then later on, when it did happen, he bowed, worshipped, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful story of Yahuwah showing forth what can do and how he heard
His prayer.
his prayers. Alrighty. Shalom, Damaris. We were just jumping back into Genesis 24, but we are really right now in Matthew chapter 6. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. Or Ezzy, do you want to continue reading the next few verses?
Sure.
Starting in verse 5?
Yes. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the congregations and on the corners of the streets to be seen by men. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward. Wonder who they talking about. Just saying.
Oh, no, go ahead. Say it. Say it. Who they talking about? Go ahead. Expound. This is expounding time.
Well, I mean, it's personal, but I don't have any scriptures, but I mean, this is plain for the people out there. I mean, you can call it evangelizing, you can call it laying hands on people, but it says clearly, when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the congregations and on the corners of the streets to be seen by men. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward. Praying is something that's intimate between you and the Father. I can understand if you're praying for someone, you know, that in order for them to receive whatever it is that Yahuwah has for them to receive, you're showing that to that one person. But when you're in these so-called churches and they're asking you to stand up and pray and stretch your hands towards this way, and it goes on about babbling, but we'll get there. But I just wanted to point out that aspect.
Well, that's an interesting thought, because for me, I see it a little bit different. I see based on the intention of your heart, because I do believe, let's say, corporate prayer, right? When we are together with our brothers and sisters and being able to pray within our congregation, I think then what he's gathering to is more the intention, like the Pharisees that did it. Let me put it this way. I've seen people and heard people when they pray a little bit more to themselves, and then I've heard a difference when they pray before people, how it's more elegant, more lofty. And I take notice of that. I do personally. I'm just kind of like, it seems a little off. I know a little bit more like when we're together and stuff like that. And then I see when you're in front of people, you're using all these other words, and it's just and I think for me, that's why I'm kind of gathering to, because I do believe in this aspect of corporate fasting, corporate prayer, corporate things. And when I see people on the streets that are preaching, that's necessary. But again, I think what it comes down to is you can get into this place where there's people and eyes on you, and it's the intention behind it. Because, for example, I don't believe praying together is wrong. I don't believe doing alms, right? Like when we give to people, let's say you're going to feed the homeless, and you're in like a soup kitchen, for example. That's in front of people. That's not just, just that one person. Or then some people do just go to the homeless one-on-one, and do that. So I don't think it's so much as doing it in front of people as much as it is, why are you doing it in front of people? That's kind of where I'm thinking, because I'm trying to think of the scenarios. Like, all right, if I might have to do something where it's an act of mercy in front of everybody, but it's my heart's not to be seen by everybody. It's just there's a whole bunch of people there. So I kind of think about that way. But then I hear what you're saying, because it's true. There is this almost like, I feel like a pressure sometimes when you're like, oh, stretch out your hand, do all this, and it just becomes just that. Like there's not really an intimacy or power behind it, and things like that. It's just kind of like for show, and just I don't know. I think there definitely is a difference, and you can feel that difference. Like something's off. Shalom, Karen. We are in Matthew 6. I want to bring out two scriptures that I was thinking about, because when I'm looking at this, how do I say it? Let me see what where I was going with it. Okay. I posted a question to myself, basically. Why would receiving the glory of men be considered a bad thing? And I was like, all right, let me think about this. Because I was thinking about Proverbs 31. And let me just jump to it. And I will go ahead and do the screen share for a second if I can find a share. All right, you should be able to see my screen, right? Okay, cool beans. So think about Proverbs 31. And in particular, I was looking at verse 30. This verse right here, verse 30. All right, it says, favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. I'm reading over here. But a woman that fears Yahuwah shall be praised. Like literally when we use the word halal, hallelujah, shall be praised. And, oh, I forgot how to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. And I was thinking about that and I was like, okay, so here's a woman who fears Yahuwah and can get the praises of people around her. And we hear it when we speak to our brothers and sisters and we elevate them. In a good way, because we see something that's in them that Yahuwah has placed in them and we give them praise. And for our sisters that fear Yahuwah and just give them the right praise. And so I was thinking, I don't think it's so much a bad thing. Again, I think that the whole purpose is the intention behind our hearts. Is it boastful? Is it prideful? You know, like I love to receive the praises of my husband. I do. I think when I'm doing something right and I'm being that, I'm really being that wife in that submissive role and just loving whatever comes with it. And he sees that and he speaks on that. It does something good for me. It's like, oh, okay. It hits my heart, and things the same way with the Father. But I think that's why he's saying, don't do it with the intent of being seen. That shouldn't be your intention, because he sees the intentions. When we stand before him, he's going to be like, all right, I know you did this, 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 and this. But where was your love? For what reason did you do it? Just to be seen by men? All right, you got your reward then. You got your prize then, but you're not getting anything from me. Versus when we do it in the secret of our heart and with the intention of just being humble and doing it for Yahuwah, to do all things for Yahuwah, for his esteem, I believe it says he rewards us openly. And I don't believe it's that private, just us and him. I do believe before men so that they can give praises back to him. So I don't know, I was kind of wrestling with that because I'm like, we need to edify each other, right? We need to lift each other up and things like that. So, but again, I think it's that intent. Then what I kept getting is intention. Like really examine yourselves. And one other verse before going was, or a few verses, Galatians 6:1-14. And I think this really kind of speaks into this with the circumcision party. Let's go back into, and I'm going to share my screen. All right, Galatians. Well, it will help if I gave a chapter. 6. All right. Does anybody want to read this? I'm going to read the first 14 verses. Negativos.
I'm still looking for it.
Oh, okay. Can you see this? Can you see the screen, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. It's KJV, so it obviously doesn't have the right stuff in it, but I wish they had like restored names.
I can read it if you want. I don't have my glasses on, but I can.
Yeah, go ahead. Or you can find it in your scriptures. Find it in your scriptures first. I'll pause.
All right.
As soon as I can find the pause button. Actually, I can't find the pause button, but that's fine. It's different because I'm in the share screen.
Put your mouse up as high as you can go. Low. Down there. 3 buttons.
You're so awesome. Thank you. All right, go for it.
Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such, and one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. Be not deceived. Yah is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. Ye see how large a letter I have written unto you with mine own hand. As many as desire to make a fair shew in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Christ. For neither they themselves who are circumcised keep the law, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. But Yahuwah forbid that I should glory, save in the cross of our Yahusha, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. Should I continue?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
All right, so there were a few things that I got in there, because when he's talking about this, Yahusha is talking about, don't do as the hypocrites do. And I do believe he was speaking on the Pharisees and the people of that time, saying, don't do as they do, and it made me think of the circumcision party, because some key things was that I got in here was, where was it? As many, here, I'll change the translation actually. Let's try the net. Okay. Those who want to make a good showing in external manners are trying to force you to be circumcised. They do so only to avoid being persecuted for the cross of Messiah. For those who are circumcised do not obey the Torah themselves, but they want you to be circumcised so that they can boast about your flesh. Again, this aspect of boasting in things in the flesh. Now, I'm not against circumcision. Let's just clear that up, because I know I'm just taking one part in Galatians. I'm trying to get to the intent of their heart. They were doing something for show of the outward appearance, for the outward boasting of men. They themselves didn't want to face persecution. It was just all in the wrong intent. And then 2, we're also to test ourselves. Where does it say? In verse 4, let each one examine his own work. Then he can take pride in himself and not compare himself with someone else, for each one will carry his own load. And what I was thinking in that regards is, again, we need to be able to examine ourselves. We have to be very introspective. I mean, because again, you can fool others, but you can't fool Yahuwah. And like I was telling Ezzy before, sometimes I'm praying to Yah and I'm saying one thing, but my thoughts are I'm saying more in my head, and I'm like, who am I fooling? Like, I'm not fooling my Father. Like, and then I just gotta speak like, Yahuwah, you know my heart. This is what I'm really thinking. This is what's on my heart. So, but we have to be able to examine ourselves, and I had to examine myself this week. It was very, very not so pleasant 2 weeks. So, and I had to really look at myself and say, am I in the flesh? Am I in the faith? Am I walking according to the Spirit? Is this a yes or no? Yes or no? And really come before you humbly. So I keep just getting the intentions of our heart is so important. And people throw out that phrase, Yahuwah knows the intention of their heart. But a lot of times when they throw that out, it's because it's like, oh, you mean well, and he knows, so you can do wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about he knows intentions of a heart so we can keep on sinning. So let me just clarify. What I'm talking about is there is a truth to out of the heart is the wellsprings of life. And I'll just read one last verse. It comes in, I think that one's in Proverbs too, Proverbs 4. Let me pause this for a second so I can find it. All right, it'll come up in my notes later on. I wanted to find the verse, but all right, go ahead. Ezzy, were you the one reading in Matthew 6? I'm sorry.
Yes. Let's see. I think that was just 5. So in 6, verse 6, Matthew 6, verse 6. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and having shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. And when praying, do not keep on babbling like the Gentiles, for they think that they shall be heard for their many words. And I think that directly correlates with what you were just saying. Like, sometimes when we're praying, or when we're praying, really, we have certain things that's already contemplating our minds, certain worries and things like that. But we try to appear to the Father as if everything's all good. And for me, sometimes it's a humbling type of thing, because his word says, he already knows our thoughts. And so I'm on the opposite end. It's like, I don't even want to ask, because he already knows what we need. So it's like, who am I to ask of these? You already know what we need. And a lot of times I end up praying, for other people and putting other people before myself. But when I had that dream that I shared with y'all last week about what he said, my children still think, how did he say it? Basically, he was saying that you can't hide your thoughts. Like, you're saying all these words and you're reading all this scripture, all this stuff sounds good, but in your heart of hearts, I know that you're thinking something else. You're desiring something else. And it makes me think of, it was David's son. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Was it Solomon? I don't think it was Solomon. Let me see if I can find the scripture. I know it was in Chronicles.
I'll pause it for you. Go.
Okay, so when it says, when you pray, go into your room, having shut the door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. In 2 Chronicles 1, verse, I'll start at verse 7. It says, that night Elohim appeared to Shelomo, or Solomon, and said to him, ask what I should give you. Now, this is the Father asking. Like, I don't know how I would be if the Father asked me, so what do you want? I'd be like, nothing. That's just me personally. Just give me life, give me water, give me a roof. Like, that's a big thing. That's supposed to be.
That's funny, because I literally was thinking about this the other day. I kid you not. And I'm like, you know what? I know what I'm gonna ask. I'm not gonna say it, but I know I'm gonna ask. I have the answer prepped, okay? And you know what I'm gonna ask. So I'm just letting you know now that you already know that we know that I know. Okay.
Right. So he asked him, what should I give you? And Shelomo said to Elohim, you have shown great kindness to Dawid, my father, and have made me sovereign in his place. Now, Yahuwah Elohim, let your promise to Dawid, my father, stand fast, for you have appointed me to reign over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Now give me wisdom and knowledge, so that I go out and come in before this people, for who rightly rules this great people of yours? And Elohim said to Shelomo, because this was in your heart, and you have not asked riches or wealth or esteem or the life of your enemies, nor have you asked long life, but have asked wisdom and knowledge for yourself, so as to rightly rule my people over whom I have appointed you to reign. Wisdom and knowledge are given to you, and riches and wealth and esteem I give you, such as none of the sovereigns who have been before you, nor have any after you. So, I mean, when he prayed, he gave thanks first of what he already had. And I just feel like there was this burden on him of leading the people. And it's a great burden, but his eyes was on the plan of Elohim. It was on the plan of Yahuwah, of, all of these things coming to pass, which can be a heavy burden. And instead of him praying for the easy way out, so to speak, he prayed for sustainability, wisdom and knowledge. The word says, hold fast to, wisdom and knowledge. And because that's what his true heart's desire was, not only is he granted that, but he's also granted, the things that we as humans desire. We desire nice things. I mean, it's in us. We're still fleshy. And I just think that directly correlates with what he's saying in Matthew 6. Shut your door and pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. He already knew what Solomon's burden was. He already knew what he's been contemplating. And because he didn't pray for lofty things or other things that all the other kings before him and, men's desires, he prayed for the blessing of Yahuwah, basically. So, I just wanted to show that.
Yeah, that's a very good scripture because, and then at the end, Yahuwah still says, furthermore, I'll give you riches, wealth, and honor. Like, you didn't ask for the fluff. I'm still going to give it to you. But I think that's beautiful. And that's where our hearts, you nailed it in this aspect of the more we go into that quote unquote prayer closet. And I know some people have a physical prayer closet, which I think is beautiful. That's like their space, and it's just literally I'm getting away, I'm closing everything, and that's it. But that aspect of just really shutting everything down, turning off the phone, not worrying about anything else, and really going into that secret place with our Ava is powerful, because I think at that point your heart starts learning his will and his desire, so that you start praying for that. Like Solomon could have prayed for the other stuff, but he didn't, because like you said, he knew there's something, a better treasure I need than this wealth that's going to fade away. There's a better treasure than I need than this life that's going to pass up. We have the eternal life afterwards, but he wasn't asking for the extension of his physical life. There's something better that I need, and it's that discernment and that wisdom, and ultimately which comes from fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of all that, right? So I think he developed that, or had that fear, to be able to be wise enough to even ask for wisdom, and ask for more. So I've seen in my own life where prayers start changing, and it's like, Yahuwah, I really desire this, but I feel like it's the spirit that says, I know you want that, but ask for something deeper. That relationship with me, ask for something deeper, that kingdom, ask for something deeper, the treasure that cannot pass. So, and we're going to get into that in this chapter too. So I think really that all again points to the heart again. Did you want to continue reading?
Yeah. And I was just going to add too that he gave thanks too beforehand. Like, he showed appreciation and gratitude for what he already had. And I think that's something that, a lot of us in this walk or Christians, whatever, forget. Like, you were woken up this morning, like, be thankful for that. You have a job to provide and sustain. So there's certain things that we should, be thankful for or show gratitude, not just with our words, but, in our everyday actions, in order to receive what we're praying for. If you're not, and he goes on to talk about that, but if you're not, I believe that if you're not being a good steward of what you've already been given, if you're not showing, thankfulness and praise for what you already have, then he's not going to give you more, because look at what you've done with what he's already given you. So
that's good. And I just want to bring out one verse that goes in line with that praise in Psalms 100, Psalms chapter 100. Yeah, if you hear noise in the background, that's my hubby disturbing the women's study. So Psalms chapter 100 verses 4 and 5 says, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and baruch his name. For Yahuwah is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations.
So in verse 7, and when praying, do not keep on babbling like the Gentiles, for they think that they shall be heard for their many words. Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Anybody want to?
Madison, Karen, you guys have anything?
Hello.
What verse are we on?
It's
Matthew chapter 6, verses 7 and 8 were just read, right? 7 and 8. And no pressure if you don't have anything. Just asking. So you guys can...
Well, while you guys were speaking, and I know, Milo, you were expressing, of course, how when some of us or people pray, generally some people do pray in the public eye, and then others do it personally. I mean, I think for the most part, most of us do it personally, but I think it's also the heart behind it, like you were saying, because I know that when I was in, in church and Christianity, there was always, it was always difficult for people to pray when others were around. And, but then when people did, there's some who, like you were saying, will use certain words or extra words. And, I believe there's also a scripture, I believe it's in Proverbs, that says when there's many words, sin is not present. I don't know, you could give or take if that applies to prayer, but somehow we can make it about ourselves too when we pray. You know what I mean? Like, I have to train myself to always think of others when I'm praying. You know what I mean? But that's through the Ruach, but it's difficult to, to like think less of yourself when you're praying. That's the aspect of it. And it also expresses how the heart is deceitful too, above all things. And so I think we need to be, how can I say, I think when it comes to prayer, you grow in your prayer walk, like you expressed. I know I have, but I wanted to be more intimate when I pray. And not only that, but just that even if I do pray with others, that I just I just have a vision of me and Yah. You know what I'm saying? Not thinking like, oh, these people are listening to me, which, when you're beginning, your spiritual walk, you start to be concerned about what people are thinking. And to me, that's not, you take away from, you take away from just connecting to Yah in that way when that happens, because you're all nervous. You're focusing on yourself, on how you're feeling and how people are viewing you. And I think that's when a form of vanity comes in, so it's a practice it is a practice. It definitely takes practice, but it really is between you and Yahuwah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. But I learned that prayer is extremely important. There's a time where some of us, even when we're going through struggles, sometimes we stray away from praying, when that's the time when He wants to hear us the most. You know what I mean? I think even in good time, well, mainly, I think when we're doing good or well, we stray away from that too, but just being in a prayerful mode all the time, is very important. Or even, because for me, I talk to Him in my thoughts. When you're at work, I do that, because I want to be able to know that I'm relying on Him and not my emotions, because it's easy for me to rely on my emotions dealing with the majority of the women I deal with at work. Believe me, I go through, I'm just like, and I get tested a lot in my flesh with these women, because I tell them the truth. I'm telling you, I be I be telling them some stuff that they don't want to hear, and I understand. But I tell them, well, I'm not gonna tell you what you want to hear. That's not loving you. I'm not loving you if I do that. So, I've learned to do that. I learned to grow in that. I've grown. Of course, I still need to grow, but I've learned to do that, because I'm like the world. If I'm telling you what you want to hear, I think of flattering lips. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that verse that you were mentioning, I think, was Proverbs 10:19. It says, "In a multitude of words there wants not sin, but he that refrains his lips is wise." Okay, that's that one. Google helped. Just Google. Yeah. There's something you were talking about, this aspect, right, of it gave me a picture. You're talking about like when we're praying with others, and then you have that one-on-one connection, and that's so powerful, right? Because it's literally like a stripping of yourself, because sometimes it's nerve-wracking, like, oh, I'm praying to somebody else and they're listening to the words. But when you can get past that, I think that's very baby and childish, right? Like, we have to get past that stage and then when we recognize, there's been times where there's been corporate prayer, and I'm sure you guys have had experience, or I hope you have, where you're just so connected with your brother and sister and Yahuwah at the same time. And it's so powerful. Like you were literally all on one accord and you're praying and you're crying out. And it's just, there's something so precious. I just picture in that point, like daddy's children coming before him and saying, we all have the same request, daddy. Like we all do. Like, okay, if you're not hearing her, you're hearing me, right? Like if you're not hearing me, you're hearing, but I mean, he hears the prayers of the righteous. But I'm just saying in this aspect of, again, that tension of just really trying to move Yahuwah's heart. And it's, again, it's not for show. It's, we have to examine ourselves, and it has to be with the intention of Yahuwah getting this theme, Yahuwah's will being done. And well, we're actually about to get into it. So does anybody else have anything else they wanted to add? Nope, cool beans. So I'm going to continue reading verse 9 to 15. After this manner, therefore pray you, our Father who is established Yeshua, our salvation, in the heavens, exalted is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done in earth as it is in the heavens. Give us the day our daily bread, and forgive us our transgressions as we forgive those who transgress against us. And lead us not into evil inclination, but deliver us from the outer darkness. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the esteem forever. Amen. For if you forgive men their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their transgressions, neither will your Father forgive your transgressions. There are a few things. There's this book, what is it called? It's okay, it is a Christian book, so, and there's definitely things that are, you gotta take the meat and spit out the bones type of thing, and the wrong names. But it was something that was foundational in my walk earlier. It's called Building Your Personal House of Prayer. And what I like that the author did was he literally took this example of prayer that Yahusha gives us, and he sets it up as though you're walking through rooms. And he literally, I'm going to go through, I thought it was really good for me. I was just like, wow, I got so much from that prayer right there. And it was going like this. So he goes, the first room is the family room, and that's where it's our Father. And he just stops right there. And it's just, take that in. When Yahusha could have used any title, there's not the name, right? But any title saying, our king, our master, our strong, valiant warrior, he could have used any title to enter into this example prayer where he says Father. And it's this picture of adoption. It's this picture of, okay, when I pray, why can I come boldly before him? I can come boldly because I'm covered in the blood of Messiah. And the fact that there's this tender heart that Yahuwah has as a daddy, like our dad. So, some dads are different, right? So we have bad examples, good examples, but good daddies want to hear their children. They want to hear, the hearts of their child, and they know how to mold it and shape it. So that was like the first quote unquote room, is this family room, just entering in. Then he talks about there's this adoration, which Ezzy mentioned. And it talks about hallowed be your name, like just this praise that we start giving to him. You enter in and you understand you're going before your Father, and then you start giving him praise, like just thank you and thanksgiving and Todah Yahuwah. And just, it, for me, it does change the, how do you say, I don't know the word right now, but it changes almost the focal point. Let me put it this way. I'm going to give a story. When I first wanted to get immersed, this was back when I was a Christian. I first came in, I was like 14, 15 years old. And my parents were very, very no, not at all. Because I was quote unquote baptized as a baby, the whole Catholic thing. And I'm like, and even though I was not in the depths of truth, and I was like literally a baby, right? Not knowing the name or anything like that. Yahuwah showed me that's not what immersion is. Like, you have to have an intention of immersion and all this stuff. And so I was praying that their hearts would change and all the hearts would change. And then one day I just stopped and just started praising. I kid you not, the same day that I was praising was the same day that they came in and said, we were thinking about it, you can go ahead and get immersed. Now, yes, was I immersed in the wrong name? Yes, I get that. However, the idea, I really do believe Yahuwah works with us in each step of our walk, no matter whether it's in Christianity to the point that we get to now, because that's why we're here now. Because if he wasn't working back then how would we be here? But that just showed me, like, give him praise because he's so worthy. And he just moves his heart when he says, if you can stop focusing on what you want for a moment and just focus on me, things will get clear, basically. And you guys can cut off at any point with these rooms. Then he goes into I'm just going to kind of jump through them real quickly. He says this, talks about this declaration room where it's declaring the kingdom of Yahuwah coming, and then it kind of starts getting into that almost like that battle cry type of thing, and this aspect of surrendering him with your will be done, not our will be done. It's just, I think it's just a beautiful picture. I don't even go through the rest of them, but this aspect of he literally goes through these quote unquote rooms, and there's so much. And I know for me, like, I'll just be very honest. Sometimes if I'm not praying out loud and I'm praying in my mind, I very easily can get distracted where I'm in the prayer and then my thoughts go somewhere else. And then you ever catch yourself where you're like, whoa, where in the world was I thinking about? Let me come back. Okay, get back in prayer. But I liked when someone was saying, even when you do that, don't give up. You still go. You have to, Karen was talking about, you have to keep building. Like you have to keep stronger in your prayer, and you'll start getting quote unquote better in it, where your thoughts are not going to idle thoughts and everything. So I love the fact that Yahushua actually gives us an example of prayer. Just who better to give us an example of how to pray than our Messiah. So Ezzy, you had something?
Yes. Also, you know, sorry, got a call. But also, Father is a provider. You know, if we look at who, you know, Daddy is, he provides. He's that counselor. He's that strong figure, so to speak. So I really think that in this prayer, instead of taking it just for simple words, I mean, like you said, thinking about it as rooms, I think of it as examining every part of yourself, you know, examining every part of yourself. Okay, let me put on my do not disturb because keep giving me a call. Sorry. But not only the aspect of examining, not only just using this as empty words, but examining, you know, what is in your heart. We keep talking about your intentions, and it's a you know, prayer is something that's intimate. But when it talks about forgive us our debts, I really think that it's emphasizing that, you know, if you have unforgiveness in your heart, and you're praying for something, then that's something that you're going to have to ask the Father to help. That's something that you need to be praying for, to, you know, overcome that unforgiveness or overcome whatever that sin is. So I think it's, you know, showing the examples of how you can examine yourself before you go to the Father to ask for what it is that you need, or instead of you asking for something that you want, by examining yourself and looking at the Father for what he is, which is a provider, you'll in turn ask for what you actually need versus what you want. So I just wanted to point that out.
That is awesome. And actually, where I was going with that forgiveness, right? Because I wrestle with that. I'm like, if someone hasn't said sorry, am I supposed to forgive them? So, but I was thinking with this, and there's a few stories, and I'm going to see if it was in the previous chapter, in chapter 5 of the same book of Matthew, chapter 5. And let's start at verse 21. You have heard that it is said by them of old, you shall not kill, whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. But I said to you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of the fire of Gehenna. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has aught against you, leave there your gift before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. And now I was talking about like without cause and things like that. But again, this the sentiment of, if there's some type of friction between brethren, right? This is how I picture. We said, obviously, right, our Father who's in heaven. So here's our daddy, and I'm trying to come to my daddy, and I have something against my brother or sister, or vice versa. They have something against me. We're both sharing the same daddy, right? So he knows I got my child over here that has a broken heart or is upset, and they're being hindered in their walk. because of something you did, or vice versa, whatever it is. And yet I'm going to try to come to my Father with him knowing this, and still try to give my gifts, still try to give my offering of praise, the frankincense, right? Without, reconciling here, how that breaks our Father's heart looking at his children be in discord, because he hates discord. He hates disunity amongst the family. So I just think about in that aspect of, we have to have reconciliation. Now, again, it doesn't say if the person doesn't want it, hey, that's on them. You know what I'm saying? Or if they're not repenting, and you go before them and they're not saying sorry, they're not being sorrowful and stuff like that, that's on them. You've done your part, and now you have to go through your forgiveness stage and everything like that. Or kind of have a slightly different stance on that, where it's like, I can't fully give you 100% of my forgiveness because you haven't actually asked for it. I just picture it naturally, like, in order for Yahuwah to forgive us, we have to go before him and repent. I feel it's the same way he requires that amongst brethren and amongst, people. So I think I personally hold that little bit of, well, there's no forgiveness for you because we haven't cleared the air, basically. Like, we haven't reconciled. There's still something there. So for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's talking about that aspect where you haven't let me just say it with this, Ezzy, right? Let's say I have a problem with you or something like that, or you have a problem with me, and we discussed it, and you don't want to hear it and everything like that. I can't help that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give it, I have to give that situation to Yahuwah. I should still be praying for you. I should still be praying that, everything clears the air, because that affects our walk. But at the same time, I don't think he's like, okay, I'm not going to forgive you because your sister over here is being unrepentant. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I'm saying. What are your thoughts on that, if I'm making sense?
So I'll talk about my own self, because I dealt with this. Because you guys know my situation, not having a home, whatever. But I moved today. So hallelujah. But all this time I was praying, for a home, for everything that was taken due to the circumstances be restored. And I'm thinking that I've forgiven, I've moved on. Really, I haven't forgiven. I've just kind of tucked it back here somewhere, not really addressing it. But then when the opportunity came, that person came to me, not really saying, I'm sorry for whatever you've done, but they reached out, and we hadn't really talked since that. So there was an opportunity that presented itself. And instead of me taking that opportunity to discuss it, my heart was hardened. I was like, oh, she calling me, and I felt like, and then at the same time, the Father showed me, like, see, you've been asking for things to be restored, but you have not restored yourself, so to speak. You haven't really forgiven. So how is he going to give me something that I'm asking for when I'm still holding on to what was taken, or holding on to that unforgiveness? So I had to examine myself and pray about that. My prayers changed from this thing that I'm desiring to now being focused on the Father, and fix my heart, change my heart, whatever it is that I'm holding on to. And then when after I felt like I was cleared of it, I went to that person to reconcile. And like you were saying, we might be holding them back from their walk by harboring that unforgiveness. She was dealing with certain emotions as a result of this tension or this hostility. And there were tears that were shed. There were things that came out, and it was like, wow, I didn't know this was affecting you like this. And it was all over a complete misunderstanding. So, I mean, I agree with that, it's different if they're not coming, with a repentant heart, or they're not really, if you present it and they're not receiving it, then that's on them or on you, depending on which side of the fence you're on. But if whoever is having the taking the step, forward, we have to meet them there. We have to meet them where they are. If we don't, not only are we hindering them from being able to carry out their walk, but we're also holding back our blessing, or whatever it is that we're, asking to receive. So yeah, I definitely agree that it's different if there's someone else, if the person doesn't really have a repentant heart, or they're not, apologetic, or they don't really see, what they've done, in order to repent. I think that's different.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that ultimately what it kind of does as you're talking about that, I'm picturing it. It makes me realize we're showing how the Father responds to us, right? There's a story where and if you know where it is, anyone knows where it is, where there's a servant and he's indebted to his master a lot of money. And he's trying, he's about to go into jail or like, be put away. And his master's like, the servant's like, no, just give me more time. And he's like, okay, go ahead. And he goes off. And that servant had a servant beneath him who owed him less money, but still money. And that second servant, I'll just give them some names. Bob is the master. Then you have Tom, and then you have Jack. All right, Jack is the lowest one. Jack goes to Tom and like, can you please forgive my debt? Like, I will pay back. Just give me time. And Tom did not show his servant that same mercy that his master had showed him. That's kind of what I envision with this, is this aspect of, if we're supposed to walk like Messiah and be like Messiah, and he has such forgiveness for all the mess that we did and deserving of death, and we can't show that forgiveness for someone that's nowhere near as much. I'm sure people have not sinned nowhere near as much as we have sinned against Yahuwah, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, there are some people who have done some crazy, reckless things, but nevertheless, we have to still show the heart of our Father to others as well. So that's kind of what I gather, I guess, if you will.
I think it might be Matthew 18.
18? Cool. Let me pause for a second. Go.
So it's Matthew 18, starting in verse 26. I'll start in verse 24. And when he had begun to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talentan. But as he was unable to pay, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. Then the servant fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I shall pay you all. And the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. And the servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver pieces. I don't know if that's more or less, but 1,000 or it sounds like it's less. Owed him 100 silver pieces, and he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me what you owe. That's a little harsh. I didn't know he was that harsh. Then his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, have patience with me, and I shall pay you all. But he would not, and went and threw him into prison till he should pay his debt. And when his fellow servants saw what he had done, they were deeply grieved and came and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master called him and said to him, wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt, seeing you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, as I also had compassion on you? And his master was wroth and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. So also my Father of the Shemaim shall do to you, if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses.
That's it. And it's crazy. You were saying how, because I've done the same thing where you kind of just put something in the back. It's not really forgiveness, because the thing we throw around the forgiveness, and you mentioned it, is like, it wasn't forgiveness. It was just, I need to be able to move on. So I got to put this to the back burner, basically. It's kind of, I think it's self-preservation, what we ultimately wind up doing, right? Trying to, gather our emotions together for something. But he says, if you do not forgive from your heart, and I've had that same situation where praying for someone, I'm like, all right, let's get through it. Let's have that reconciliation. And boom, I'm confronted with it. And I think he does it very intentionally. It says, yeah, you thought you were ready and your heart's not. And you just went back 5 steps. So let's deal with it. But in that sense, I like that he does it, because he shows us, okay, I got you to the point where you're up to this point of reconciliation. You need to see how you really are. And I think that's what he does. He gives us that mirror and says, oh, okay. Yeah, my heart's like the heart of stone right now. I need to, have it change to flesh and things like that. So I think that's, again, I think everything's a process with Yahuwah. I really do. And he gives things in our time. He throws it in our time and says, all right, now let's move to the next few steps. So good stuff, good stuff. Damaris, would you like to read? No pressure, you don't have to, but would you like to read the next few verses? In Matthew 6. Negativos, not mute. Cool beans. All right, I'm going to go to verses 16, Matthew 6:16. And this has the same thought pattern. Moreover, when you fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Amen, I say unto you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, that you appear not unto men to fast, but unto your Father which is in the secret. And your Father which sees in secret shall reward you openly. Again, it's the same theme. And I'm glad that he brought these things, because these are giving your alms or acts of charity, praying, fasting. These are such beautiful things. This is like the heart of the Father, right? And what he desires of us. And Yahusha shows even that can be distorted. Do not distort these things. And know that it can be. Know there's a difference. Check yourself. Examine yourself. And all these things. And kind of what I got with all this was pride. Like, that's basically what it came down to. I want to be seen by this person. I want to, I want to get all the steam. You get your reward right there. You got it. You got your accolades. Go ahead. Go for it. And again, I think there's a difference where Yahuwah exalts a person. And you know what I'm saying? So for example, I think of it like this. If I'm at work, right? And scenario A, I'm doing everything and I'm doing a good job, and I'm telling my colleagues, oh, you saw I did this, or hey, I did this, and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh yeah, good job. Boom. All right, I got my reward. Versus I'm doing what I need to do, but my boss is seeing me. And I'm not saying anything, but I'm doing what I do, and I'm going above and beyond, and my boss is seeing me. And my colleagues are seeing me, and they're going to my boss and saying, hey, she put in this extra work. She stayed this extra few hours. She did this. She came in earlier, blah, 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 blah. It's almost like our Father in heaven saying, okay, you know what? I want to promote you. We got a reward. Like, there is something that still came out of it. There's still a reward. That's not the bad thing. There's still some type of praise and esteem. That's not the bad thing. It's my intention. At the end of the day, his focal point is your heart. I think that's what he's getting to. Your heart. Praying is not bad. Fasting is not bad. Giving to charity is not bad. All that stuff. That's not bad. What are you doing it for? Like, really, I think that's just kind of the hone-in message. And there were a few verses I wanted to kind of jump out with: examining yourselves, guarding your heart, and pride. And I'm going to share the screen here. All right, let's see. And let's try the web. One of them was Proverbs, and you can jump on in if you want to discuss these in depth. Proverbs 23. It says, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And when I was looking at that word keep, not sar, it is to guard, to watch, to guard, to keep, to preserve, guard from dangers. That is a task and a half to do, to really do that with your heart. It says heart, but it translates into inner man, your mind, your will, your heart, and your understanding. You need to guard these things with all diligence. Now, I like this. This was very interesting. With all diligence was a place of confinement, a prison, a guard, a jail, a guard post, watch, observance, jail, prison, guardhouse. And I was like, wow, that is a very strong image. Like, keep your heart in this confined place. Keep your understanding in this confined place, because out of it comes the issues of life. And I was just thinking, like, an imprisonment, like, isn't that a bad thing? And it's like, then I was thinking, no, it's not. It's a protective place. It's you really need to guard it. You need to watch what comes in, and you need to watch what goes out from it. That was one verse. This aspect of examining ourselves. 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, examine yourselves whether you are in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know you not your own selves that Yahushua Messiah is in you, except you are reprobates? That's a powerful thing to say. Examine yourselves to see if you're in the faith. Those are one of those scary verses to me. Like, wow, like, I really need to check myself and see, am I even in the, like, to do that? Like, that's, so nevertheless. Isaiah 2:12 Now we're going to go into a few, 3 verses on pride. For the day of Yahuwah of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, and upon everyone that is lifted up. He shall be brought low. My concept is I'd rather be humble now and exalted later by Yahuwah than be exalted now in my own self and boasting and prideful my own self and him humbling me then. Because I don't think that's a pretty humbling on the day of Yahuwah in that sense.
Yes.
Go ahead, Karen.
No, when you shared the other scripture, 2 Corinthians, I believe, 2 Corinthians. My question was then how do you examine yourself? That's my question. You know what I mean? Meaning like, ooh, so how do you examine yourself where you don't get to a point of pride as versus humility, if you know what I mean? That you could feel like, well, I've done this check, I'm doing this check, I do this check, and you're still far from him. You know? And I think that's where the heart is deceitful that comes in. You know, even when you were sharing how when people give to charity, you know, during this time, you're going to see people at shelters, soup kitchens, you know, and people are watching this. But then my thing is like, this could be done any time of the year. You know what I mean? And also, you know, we know that celebrities do this all the time. They're giving to charity all this money. They're building schools. And it's like, wow, they're doing a great thing. But but what is the heart behind it? You know what I mean? So, that's what was coming to my mind. So, like, you constantly need to be examining your heart because it's flesh. And it is difficult because even while I'm hearing this, I'm like, yeah, like you need to examine why do you do what you do? You know what I mean? Like, why do I pray? Why do I take care of my family? Why, I'm saying, of course, I need to take care of my family, but I'm saying, like, what's the intention behind it in everything that I do? Why do I do what I do? You know?
That's a very good question. And I think the how is very good. When I think about examining myself, I think of literally, this might sound crazy, but I literally think of sitting down with myself and having a full-blown conversation. Now, I'm not talking about like I'm speaking to other spirits. I'm talking about like when you're really introspective, and just like you said, like sometimes we don't take the time to slow down for a second. We talked about that prayer closet. Let me put that. I think one is the prayer closet, getting into that prayer closet and seeking Yahuwah sincerely and saying, where am I with you? If you really have that question, if you're wrestling. 2, I think it's really asking just why. And how do I put it? You said it, the heart is very deceitful. We can sometimes deceive ourselves. Like, oh, no, I got good intentions. But if you really just sit down with yourself and be like, you know what, what's the purpose of me doing this? Why do I want to go out and feed the homeless? Okay, my brothers and sisters are doing it. I feel more pushed. I feel more whatever it is. Or why is it that I'm going out and I want to pray in front of these people? Is it because I really have a heart for these people? Is it really because I have a heart for these souls? Is that why? And that's what's bubbling up within you? Or is it, yeah, you know what, I want to be seen? Like, I think if we genuinely just sat down with ourselves and asked those rough questions to ourselves and be very introspective, because many people just keep going with the flow. You just keep going, keep going. But when I feel like unless you're reprobate and he gives you to that delusion, that's a very scary place to be at. But I feel like if we had to be very honest with ourselves, we would know. And we're like, when we're second guessing, or you know the thoughts in your mind and saying, okay, this is why I'm doing it, or we just have to be very real with ourselves. And at that point, I think it comes with confession, one to another and to Yahuwah. So that's a very good question on how to examine yourselves. I just think for me personally, it's a sit down, stop everything, and really ask where you're at in the walk. Why am I doing this thing? What's my heart behind it? So yeah, it's kind of for me.
I also think it's, like it says in the prayer, give us our daily bread. Our daily bread is Torah. Our daily bread is the word. Messiah said, take of this and remember, take the bread and remember this is my body. And we know that Yahusha is the word becoming flesh. So I really think that being in the word and reading the word daily, and the Father will put different things on you. I mean, sometimes I just open up my book and read whatever it's open to, and a lot of times it relates to either a thought or something I was thinking about yesterday or a question that I had. I mean, the Father is very intentional with his ruach. So reading, giving thanks for our daily bread, having this word, knowing his name, not only can we read what he expects of us and how we're supposed to live, but if you have those questions, you can ask for it to be shown, pray for it to be shown, and he'll show you in his word. Believe me, he will show you in his word. There was something that I had asked for. I think it was about whether or not I should do a fast. And he took me to Zechariah 8, where it talks about the Father is the source of our strength. Because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And I didn't know if it was really from the Father. But, reading that helped me get through it. And, just different things that we pray for. So if that's something that you're seeking, if you don't know, or like the dream that I had where I didn't really recognize, or I wasn't sure whether that being was Yahusha or not, I immediately woke up and prayed like, Father, show me your character, show me in your word who you are, so that I won't deny you, so that I won't mistake you for something else. And what he's shown me is to focus on the milk. It's interesting that we read yesterday about being like children. And I feel like a child learning the alphabet, learning how to read, learning really how to read, because English distorts the meaning of different words. So taking it back to the basics, like I was saying yesterday, as a child, before you get solid food, you're drinking milk. And even when you feed a baby solid food, they're pushing it out of their mouth. They may not even want it. Either they don't like it, or they haven't developed the muscles to actually swallow it and push it to the back of their mouth. So if you don't know what needs to be examined, you have to ask the Father. You have to ask Daddy, show me. Show me what it is, and then go to the word. Just get in the word. Even if he doesn't answer immediately, just go to the word and he'll show you what you need to examine, or you'll read something with the new lenses that he's given us that will, open up that truth or open up that place that maybe you haven't examined. So eat your daily bread.
That's awesome. And also, I was just thinking as you're talking, we have to know our limitations, and we have to get back to not being prideful. And if we have to stop running forward for a second because we're really actually not running forward, like for example, going through a rough time, when you're fleshy versus you're walking in the spirit, reaching out to your brothers and sisters and saying, hey, honestly, I'm not where I need to be at. I know that. So, and it's hard because sometimes we don't want to put our guard down, or we want to just keep going and seem so spiritual and everything like that. But then it's a facade, and then you start deceiving yourself, like, oh, no, I'm good. I can speak the word, blah, 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 I'm good, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, your heart is not in the right place. You lost your first love. Things like when he talks to the 7 congregations in Revelation, So I think at the end of the day, we each individually know it's whether or not we want to come face to face with that reality. I think that's really what it is. And we have to be able to have that conversation with Yahuwah and say, I'm just not where I need to be, So that was a very good open, Karen. All right, let's continue. And verse 19. So Matthew 6, verse 19. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth where moth and rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust do corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. But if your eye be evil, your whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you be darkness, how great is that darkness? For no man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve Yah and Mammon. I want to stop there. Does anybody want to add anything in? Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was going to. I didn't know that I was going to read that I had that written down, but that's funny. So in verse 22, where it says the lamp of the body is the eye, if therefore your eye is good, all your body shall be enlightened. And I was looking up the eye, and of course this is because we're in the Brit Hadashah, it's a Greek translation, but the word is ophthalmos, which is also what you call, there's like a nerve that connects to your brain, and the part of the brain that it connects to is also called the ophthalmos, or the lobe that it connects to. And so the translation of that word is the eye, or it also has metaphorically, because we know Greek is abstract, the eyes of the mind, the faculty of knowing, which that sounds like the mind. And so in Proverbs, what is it? Proverbs 23. Hold on. Okay, so I was going to Proverbs 23 and 21, where it says, for the drunkard and the glutton become poor and slumber, clothes and rags. Now, that might be a little bit abstract, but I really think that this verse is pointing out not only what we see, but what we're allowing to come in our body. And yes, the eye is an entrance to the mind, but food that we eat is also an entrance to the mind, because our body breaks it down, and there's different nutrients and things that we eat can play on our mind's eye or on, the brain. And so I think that verse, or that section, says a lot, because, being a glutton or being drunk, it affects your judgment. It affects decisions that you make. And I think that's why the Father says not to be drunk, to drink, be glad and drink wine, but not to become drunk. And there's different examples of people making bad decisions when they're drunk. You have Noah that exposed himself naked to his sons. You have Jacob that laid down with, not the woman that he wanted to lay with, and then he got stuck with 2 wives. So there's different examples of our judgment being affected by taking something into our eye or into our mind's eye. And something that I was also, something that I can relate to is the Father always gives me a dream, like every Shabbat. And it's to the point where now I look forward to it. But the dream that I had last night was very foul and very perverse. And I also had not so good food yesterday. And that verse just spoke to me, because normally I'm eating, plants, I'm eating all the stuff that's good for the body, which in turn is good for the mind. But the dream I had last night was as foul as the food that I ate, like literally. So that verse just stood out to me. But also, if we look at 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5, it talks about exactly what Karen's question is. It says, examine yourselves whether you are in the belief, prove yourselves, or do you not know yourselves that Yahushua HaMashiach is in you, unless you are disproved. And I trust that you shall know that we are not disproved. I mean, that, and it goes on to say, and we pray to Elohim that you do no evil at all, not what we should appear approved, but what you should do. But that you should do what is right, even though we should appear unapproved. For we have no power at all against the truth, but for the truth. For we rejoice when we are weak and you are strong. And this also we pray for your perfection. For this reason, I write this in my absence, so that being present, I should not use sharpness according to the authority which the Adon has given me for upbuilding and not for overthrowing. So I think there's this aspect of not striving for perfection, but at least making sure that what our eyes see and what we put in our body agrees with the Father. And how we know whether or not it agrees with the Father, or an example of examining yourself, is if the fruit is in the fruit, if it proves that it's from the Father. The sweet dreams that I have, and Messiah is in it, and there's the word is in it, I know that that's from the Father. But the dream that I had last night just showed me that I didn't put in my body what needed to be put in my body. And there was something else that that I was going to bring out of that. I think it was in Ephesians 4:17. Well, I'll start at 16. Ephesians 4:16. Okay, I'll start at 15, sorry. But maintaining the truth in love, we grow up in all respects into him who is the head, Messiah, from whom the entire body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the working by which each part does its share, causing growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. So this I say and witness in the Adon, that you should no longer walk as the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having been darkened in their understanding, having been estranged from the existence of Elohim because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart, who having become callous, have given themselves up to indecency, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But you have not so learned Messiah, if indeed you have heard him and were taught by him, as truth is in Yahusha, that you put off with regard to your former behavior the old man, being corrupted according to the desires of the deceit, and to be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the renewed man, which was created according to Elohim in righteousness and in Kadishah of the truth. So when he's talking about the eye being the lamp of the body, I mean, I see it twofold, not only our physical body, but also as an assembly. What we allow in our body or in our assembly is a reflection of where we are in our walk as well, and in our knowing of Messiah, and taking on certain things that if you knowingly know that it's against Torah, then you're going to reap, those consequences, or that foulness of defying Torah, what that brings, versus knowing what's right and wrong, and knowing the love and the truth of Messiah and acting accordingly. Hopefully that was clear, because I feel like I was all over the place.
You were right on.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's the Ruach, when you're kind of out of body. But yeah, because I felt like I was all over the place. So good. I'm glad it was clear.
No, because you have a point. You were mentioning how you put something in your body that you probably shouldn't have, because by the dream that you had. And that's true, because what we do put into our bodies can distort, what happens in the brain as we sleep. And then you're really like, where did that come from? But it does come from either what you've seen or what you put inside, because it's either going to defile you or not. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. I never thought in regards to the food. That's a very interesting thought, to be honest. That's different. I never, but I've heard, like, my brothers and sisters say when they eat meat or certain types of meat, they feel a certain way, or just certain things that they put in, something else comes out, which is very interesting. No, I think that was spot on, Ezzy, honestly. And I'm very sensitive to when it comes to what I'm watching, because it will come up in some type of dream or some type of thought later. And literally, like, my husband already knows, like, if we're going to watch something, and then I was like, babe, I had a dream. And then he's listening. He's like, all right, that was from that scene. There was this little monster thing, and that's where that came from. And it's like, because I'm that sensitive. And I was like, whoa, I really need to be careful with what I put in my eyes. Like, what do I behold? And do I let the flesh feed off more than I let the spirit? So that's awesome. One thing I did want to bring out in this is lay up not for yourself treasures upon the earth, but yeah, in heaven. And cross reference I have, I'll just read it. Matthew 13:45 and 46. It says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of a great price, went, sold all that he had, and bought it. And I thought that was very powerful, in the sense of, all the materialistic, I was talking with some other sisters, right? Having materialistic things is not bad. And sometimes I feel like we come into this walk and feel like we have to be broken down and disgusted and all that stuff. And that's what humility looks like. No. I see where our forefathers, some of them were rich and wealthy. Like, look at Abraham. And yet he is he's the father of faith. And yet he had so much. again, this heart's intense. There's people that are poor and out there, but yet they're prideful as anything. There are people that have a lot and are prideful as anything. It's again the heart. And I think we're saying is, don't focus on these materialistic things. Don't focus on the money and your house and your clothes, and don't, that can't be your focal point. If that's where your heart is, you're storing up everything now, but at the end of the day, when you go into that coffin, none of that's coming with you. When we stand before Yahuwah, I can't be like, oh, you saw the mansion I got? Like, you saw, that's how much I'm worth. Like, no, that just fades away. That's not where our heart needs to be. And as you brought out before, where Solomon was praying, right? He asked for that wisdom. Now he was obviously very wealthy. He's a king of Israel, right? Very wealthy, had a whole bunch of stuff. But in that initial prayer, we saw his heart, where I think it was at the good place at that time, where he's asking for wisdom. He's asking for something of the kingdom, that something that cannot be destroyed, something that has eternal weight, that when it goes through the fire of Yahuwah, it's refined as gold. It's not as though it's hay and straw being burnt up. And when I was looking at this parable where it's like pearls, it says this guy sold everything he had to get that one pearl of great value. It's like losing and stripping ourselves of everything that we have and our desires to gain the kingdom. And that's our focal point, because it's such a treasure. And, when we talk about, okay, well, what is it that we want in the kingdom? It's his righteousness. It's his justice. It's his right judgments and right rulings. It's his Torah. It's the heart of the Father. It's his will being done. When we seek that, his wisdom, his discernment, his understanding, the rest will come. And we're going to get into the rest of that'll be added. He already knows what we need. He knows it. Yahuwah is not stupid. He's not dumb. He's not ignorant to what men need, men as in mankind. But he says there's something deeper that you really need. And we don't understand that. We have to gain that understanding of, oh, okay, it's not about what I'm flaunting. So just want to throw it out there. And I'm just going to read, or Ezzy, do you want to read to the end, or anybody want to read 25 to the end? And then we'll talk about it. So we got a few more minutes left.
I can read if you like.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say this to you, Milo. Pray for patience. Patience, my sister. Patience.
I need it.
Maybe that is what you need. Because also, raising children. I'm a single mom, but patience. I did not have patience in the beginning, but through the development of my child and with Torah, because I didn't have Torah in the beginning of this, but it's taught me patience. He's taught me patience. And if I had patience in the beginning, I think my life would have been very different. But it takes a lot of patience in raising children. And that is something that not only love, but patience. Sometimes that patience will precede or exceed the love at times. And then the love will come back. Not to say that I hate my child, but sometimes the things that he does, just saying. So pray for patience, my sister, because it will help you before and after it comes to pass. That's all I'll say. Which verse are we on?
We are at 25.
Okay. So because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, but what you shall put. Oh, wait, let me start over. Because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of the Shemaim, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into storehouses, yet your Father of the Shemaim feeds them. And are you not worthy more than they? And which of you, by worrying, is able to add one pekos to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Solomon, in all his esteem, was not dressed like one of these. But if Elohim so clothes the grass of the field, which exists today, and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief? Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For all these the Gentiles seek for, and your Father of the Shemaim knows that you need all these. but seek first the reign of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. And what I think about in that verse about the clothing, it makes me think of Adam and Hawa in Genesis. It was, I think it was in chapter 2. It was in chapter 2, maybe chapter 3 of Genesis, but after they ate of the tree and then they were naked. And so they, as humans, what we think is enough is it doesn't compare to what the Father can provide. And so they're sewing fig trees or fig leaves to cover themselves. But later on, Yahuwah makes clothing for them. And I just think that is a picture of what the Father can, what we think we need, and we do it for ourselves, compared to the fullness of what the Father will bring and add to us. It makes me think of them, because they hid themselves. Even though they sowed fig trees and they were naked, they still didn't feel fully clothed, fully protected, and they still hid themselves. And then you're hiding yourself from the Father, and it's like, do you not know that I know your whole existence, your whole makeup, and this, what you did, is not enough. You're not even close to what I can do if you just allow me to do for you. So that's all I wanted to point out.
Awesome, good stuff. And what I got from this is this aspect of worry, right? Especially verse, was it 27? Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit unto his stature? And it's like, if I'm just worrying, or later on where it says, verse 34, take therefore no thought for the morrow, for tomorrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is evil thereof. Like, me worrying is not adding anything. And even nowadays, we know it. We know that worry, stress, and all that just depletes our life, right? Like, we release all these hormones and all this cortisol, these stress hormones, and it doesn't do your body any good. It doesn't do your mind any good. It doesn't do your spirit any good. And Ezzy, you're just awesome by bringing up Solomon in that prayer, because again, Yahusha brings out here, seek first the kingdom. Seek that first. Seek after my righteousness first. All else shall be added to you. And this is the verse that speaks to me, because I'm the one that does the budget in the house. I'm the one that sees the numbers come in and out. Money just kind of flows, like comes in. It's like, oh, bill. Oh, okay, you get a little food, bill. You know what I'm saying? That we all have that, right? So, and when you look at this, like, oh my goodness, Yahuwah, and like, oh, but how are we gonna have this, blah blah blah, and it's like, don't worry about that. And it's sometimes I chuckle at myself, because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't be like my forefathers in the wilderness, because they grumbled and everything like that. But when I look at my life and I see how Yahuwah has always brought us through, has always kept a roof over our head, has always provided food for us, has always given us shelter, and had our brothers reach out and stuff like that, have always done that. And when we thought, it was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Sometimes I have to stop and think about that and remember that and say, you know what, I can't worry about that, because you got that. Let me focus on your face. Now, when I lose and I get distracted and stop focusing on his face, that's when all that worry and all that grief and all that flesh comes in and all that. So it's just this aspect of, again, storing up our treasure. And I think this chapter, Yahusha, really hits to the heart of the matter. Do all these things, but examine yourself, and like Karen said, really think about, how are we going to examine ourselves? We got to sit down and have those conversations with Yah and with our brothers and sisters too, because sometimes I call it smacked up. Sometimes my sisters be smacking me up, and they'd be like, psh, 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 and I'm like, but when I sit down and I'm like, okay, it was needed, and I remember that we need that. That's why we need each other. Say, hey, you're not yourself. Something's going on. What's going on? And it's like, I know everything's good. No, and I laugh because I do that. I'm listen.
It's true.
I'll be 100. I'll be 100. If you're not hearing from me, something is happening. That's just Karen already. That's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna go into it because we're recording right now. But all I'm gonna say is, if you're not hearing, this is what it brings up to me. What I'm thinking. Not only do we have to examine ourselves, we have to be able to examine our brothers and sisters, right? So when we start learning each other and we start, you learn the personalities and then you see something's off. Don't throw that thought away. Don't push that to the side. Just reach out. If everything's good, everything's good. But if you have that inclination, something's not right. Like Karen did it. Don't hesitate to reach out to your brothers and sisters because you don't know when they're going through the fire. And sometimes some of our first initial reactions is to duck and dodge everybody and just go into hiding, which is what Ezzy was mentioning. Exactly what Adam and Eve was doing, right? Their first thing was like, oh, let me cover myself and hide. Sometimes that's like the initial response. So examine yourselves, but also examine your brothers and sisters because we need to walk together in this. So I thought it was an awesome, awesome chapter. We will not be getting into probably the Hebrew. Well, you know what? I think we have a few minutes. We can knock in mercy. I think we can knock in the word mercy. You think so? All right, cool. So do you guys, Damaris, Karen, you have any last words on Matthew 6?
Good stuff. I need to. I'm gonna review that even more so because it really opened some doors. So, but it was really good, very enlightening.
Hallelujah. All right, so then we're gonna jump real quick. We're gonna switch it up right now, and I'm trying to find. There we go. What we wind up doing for those that are watching. Not only do we try to read a chapter, if I can pick up this image here. We also try to pick a Hebrew word for the week and run through it. And unfortunately, this is going to be a very short one, but we can always come back to it. And I have the site that I like to go to, but it is not populating, which may mean we may not be able to go to unless someone else can find the Hebrew letters.
I've got it.
You got them? Perfect.
I can't share my screen, but I have the letters.
No, I have the letters. I want to share it so that people can see what we're they can kind of engage with what we're doing. If anything, I might just put the word.
Do you need what website do you go to?
Well, I usually just re-Google it again and then it shows up this whole page and I see it, but it's just not populated. So I don't know the name of the website. Let me pause for a second. Ezzy, you're awesome. Thank you very much. She's giving us a website. Reja there. All right, Ezzy, so you have the spelling. Let me just ask you if you have the same spelling I do. Chet, Samet, Dalet.
Yep.
Okay, cool beans.
Yay! Because I did not know. I was like, little rusty.
Cool beans. Are you able to see the screen here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
zoom in a little.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want to go through the first letter, the Het, which is here?
Yes. So Het means wall, divide, outside, half.
Mm-hmm.
Or tent wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right here, wall, outside, divide, half. Mm-hmm.
You want me to go through each letter?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And then Samek is grab, hate, protect. And then the Dalet is...
Hold on. I can't find the Samek. Did I miss it? Oh, it's right here. Here we go.
Thorn, it's a picture of a thorn.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Dalet, which is the door, is move, hang, or entrance.
Mm-hmm. Right there. And let me see if I can go ahead and just show over. Oh, I didn't want it in the web. That's fine. Okay, so here it is. Chesed. Mm-hmm. Did you get anything from that when you were reading it?
Yeah, what I got is that mercy or kindness is twofold. It can be moving outside of like protection, and then also entering into like a wall or a division of protection. Because I think of it like a mother's love or a parent's love. You know, we show kindness to our children by keeping them protected, sometimes overprotected. But then also when they do wrong or when they are disobedient, we have to show a sense of tough love and kind of put them in exile, so to speak. Like when my son does something bad, I take things away from him and I basically banish him to his room to where all he can do is read, which it's still showing kindness because at least, you know, I'm not putting you out of my house on the street. But you've been somewhat exiled on a kind scale, so tough love almost, so to speak. And to refer to a scripture that I wanted to refer to is Genesis 19, verse 13 through 26. I won't read it all, but I'll read some of it. This is when Sodom and Gomorrah were going to be destroyed, and Lot was visited by a messenger to basically be told to leave the place. And where I think Yahuwah shows his kindness is Yahuwah, or the messenger told him to go to the mountain. And then Lot said in verse 18, he says, "Oh no, Yahuwah, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die." And then in verse 20, he says, "Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. Is it not a small matter? And let my life be saved." And he said to him, being the messenger, I think, "Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there." So the name of the city was Sor. So I see that twofold where it's like, you're asking, it's like, Daddy said do this, and you're like, but before I do that, can I do this? Like, please? And he's like, okay. It's almost like that tough love, but he's still giving a provision, like, you got to hurry up and get there because I'm only saving the city because you said to save it. So it's almost that twofold.
Awesome. Good stuff. What I was getting from this word, right? This chesed, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm just gonna read it when I put it together. There is, so let me just, for the audience, what we wind up doing is we break out the Hebrew word like we did. Sister went through each and every letter, and then the meaning of it, because Hebrew is beautiful enough where it actually has meanings per letter, which is different. It's not like an English where an A is an A and that's all it is. There's nothing more to it. So what I got from it was, there is a division between us and Yah, a divide between us because of our thorny hearts or sinfulness. But he provides a door, himself, Yahusha, because he desires to protect us. And yeah, that's what I was getting, because anytime I think about the dollar and I think about the door, I automatically think about Yahusha being that door. And there is this chasm, as you will, this divide between us initially. And it is his kindness, his tender loving kindness, and his compassion, and even his pity at times, to provide that means for us to come back to him, especially having sin. And he allows that blood to be able to bridge the gap for us and cleanse us. So that's what I was gathering from that one. We're down to our last few moments. Karen and Demadis, did you have any, or Ezzy, any last words you wanted to share with the YouTube world?
Let me see. I didn't put it totally together. I did have that word before. I can't find the paper, but with the Dalit, I had a translation saying that, right, Dalit, he is the only way to Abba, the way into his house where he shuts out our enemies, right? This is for Dalit, which is the first letter, right? And then Samek, dice, let me see. Samek says, Yahushua is the vine and servant candle. We are his branches. And he supports and lights us up, right? This is for Samek. Okay, sorry, yeah. And then Het says that the good shepherd encloses and protects us in his sheepfold. He sets the borders of what is in and outside the kingdom. This is something that sister has sent me out forward because I really love the breakdown of that, it really opens it up even more.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Cool beans. So we will end there. Thank you, ladies. So that was Matthew chapter 6, and then the Hebrew word chesed, H26:17, goodness, kindness, faithfulness. And so we will see you, hopefully, next week. Shalom in your home.